Hello, this is going to be a quick demonstration on the Ultracube mod. Let's dive right into it. I'm going to do up a new game here. I want to make sure you pick the free play, not the actual mod scenario. So free play up here. All of that looks good. Let's just make sure we've got some resources close to some water. Don't want to be running around too much for a demo here. This looks good. Okay. Your first task is to grab the cube. I'm going to pick this up here. So there's a lot of recipes involving this cube, but most notably you're going to want to make this basic matter unit. So you run it and you're basically going to get 100 basic matter every time you do that. I'm going to start it real quick here by just spinning up about 5,000 of them. Okay, that should be good for now. Now we're going to get some power infrastructure going, so I'm going to grab an offshore pump. Just a single boiler is all you're pretty much going to need for quite some time. And I'm going to do about 100 of these steam engines. Okay, I'll let that cook in my construction cube. I'm also going to do 20 of these storage tanks, maybe 60 or so electric poles. We're going to need just a whole bunch of pipe. I'll let that cook in my construction queue. Maybe a couple of chests. And all that's looking good so far. Okay, so let's run over where we're going to start constructing. I'm going to pull up some of these rocks over here to grab some quick stone. In the meantime, if you're new to this game, this video will include a bunch of spoilers, so if you don't want to see the first hour or so of gameplay, you want to figure it out on your own, I suggest you stop watching this right now and go and give that a try. But if you want to get some tips and tricks and maybe get your first hour into this game a little bit more comfortable, then I'll show you how to get that done. Alright, there we go. Let's start deploying some of this power infrastructure. I needed that stone here so I could build a couple of pipe to ground. They are very useful, but they require some stone. Okay, so we're going to start with an offshore pump here. It's going to get us some water. And then we're going to place down this boiler. Note, however, the inputs on the boiler are changed from vanilla, so we actually want to insert the water on the side, and the steam is going to come out either end. So I'll put this guy right down right here. Then I'm going to start putting down a whole bunch of steam engines. If you're used to vanilla Factorio, you're used to a ratio of usually 1 to 2 or something similar. For the boilers to steam engines, we're going to need a much higher ratio of something more like 1 to 100 in order to effectively use our power. The cube that we're carrying out is a source of immense energy, but it also has... anyway, we need a better ratio. So I'm just going to quickly deploy a whole bunch of power down with some steam engines and some pipes, just so I can insert some power poles intermittently here. Now note also that the base game here comes with some construction robots, which is handy, which is going to allow us to do stuff like this, and just make some of these blueprints a little more human-friendly to get started out of the gate here. So let the robots build some stuff. While they're doing that, I'm just going to stick in some power poles here. Also, we have out of the gate here quite a good reach, so you're able to, place things quite far away from the character, which is pretty handy. There's a big focus in this mod on basically not moving around too much. You can see as I'm running holding the cube here that I'm physically quite slow. If you want to move faster, you can basically drop the cube way out ahead of yourself by pressing Z, and then you can run a little faster while you go pick it up ahead of you. Just make sure you don't lose it. Okay, so we're going to use some of these stone pipes here to fill that up. I'm going to drop in also just a bit of a buffer of some steam. That'll be enough to get started right now. Use one of these underground pipes and connect up the input. So you can see we're full of water here, but this burner does not, or boiler actually, does not actually take coal. What we need is the ultradense utility cube itself. So I'm going to drop that in there, and you'll see it's immediately starting to pump water through. On the right there, you can see the consumption is about 1.2 thousand units per second. So this is going to fill it up pretty quickly. Each of these steam engines holds about 200. So there's about 1,200 per row. So we're going to do about 1 second to fill up each row. And then I've got an additional 125,000 storage at the end here of steam. And you'll see why that storage is important in a second, but basically we're going to need a bit of a buffer. So all set, it should take about a minute and it'll fill up ourselves with steam. But you'll notice that it stopped working. So every time that we cook with the cube, it's going to go into an a dormant ultradense cube state. And obviously we can't put that back in as fuel. So what we need to do is go through a recipe of a utility cube manual reboot. So we do that, and it restores the cube back to its natural state, and then we can put it back in as fuel. So that's a bit of a manual loop that you're going to have to go through 20 or 30 times just before we get started. To just basically take the energy out of the cube and store that energy in steam. So I'm going to do that maybe 3 or 4 more times here before we get started on the next phase. You just take it out, run the hard reset on it, and drop it back in. You can see we've already got about half of our buffer is filled up here. I'll do it one more time and then we'll move on to the next phase here. Okay, so now that we've got that going, the next thing we want to start doing is looking towards some science, so we can unlock some technologies. So what we've got available as technologies is basically some inserter unlocks, some furnace unlocks, some logistics, and electric mining. And as soon as we've got that done, we'll also have access to this ultradense furnace, electronic circuits, and then into the fabricator. So let's look at how we do some of those circuits. So those are basically going to be made in a synthesizer, and they require the ultradense utility cube only. So we start here with a synthesizer in our inventory. I'll plop that guy down here and set the recipe as the basic contemplation cards. So I'll go over here, grab our cube, we're going to reboot it again, and I'm just going to throw that in now as the base recipe. We need to hook up some power poles, there we go. And if I look at the power usage here, you're going to see this thing uses a whole lot of power for a short amount of time. And most of the important buildings in this mod are going to do that. So again, if I look at the power chart over here over the 1 minute graph, you can see that without that building running, we're using effectively 0 power, and then it jumps immediately up to 43 megawatts. So that's why we've got so many different steam engines here, is to produce that amount of power, and then this amount of steam in order to provide some buffer time, so I'm not having to constantly flip back and forth between the 2 different production modes. Run this cube here a few more times. And if clicking like this is kind of a little bit more annoying, where you've got to move your mouse over to here, click up the cube, move your mouse over here, and put it back. So what I find is a little handy is you're going to click on the cube here and just assign it a spot in your hotbar, and then then go out of the interface, and you can basically now control click on the building, is going to take all of the contemplation cards and the utility cube out of the building, and then click on your hotbar, and then control click on it back in the building. So with basically 3 clicks like this, you can pull the cube out of the building, and put it back into the building, and it just makes it easier to do that repetitive clicking task, I think. So I'm going to do this until I get about, let's just say 400 of these cards. Takes about a minute. I'm just going to put the cards in my hotbar so I can keep track of how many of them I got. Note though, this is a recipe that doesn't actually deplete the cube. We're only using the cube to create these basic contemplation cards basically out of thin air. But it requires the presence of the cube as the reagent to do that. Okay, I went a little past my target. I got 500 of these. But that should be good to go for now. So in order to use our science cards, we basically need to make some labs. So I'm going to make, let's go with maybe 30 labs, I think seems like a good number. You can see I just immediately blew through 300 of those cards. Maybe I'll make a few more while I'm waiting. Okay, you can see the building starting to slow down here. So if I put it in here, you'll see it's basically running low on electricity. So if we go down here, you can see that our steam is very depleted. So I'm going to do a couple cycles just recharging the power again. Okay, while that cooks, I'm going to set up a basic lab deployment here. So I'll just get rid of some of these rocks with the robots. And let's do 30 labs, maybe. Yeah, let's do like this. Oh, we need some inserters, which we don't have yet. Okay, so let's get started on some research then. Okay, and I'm just going to basically take these cards and hold Z, and then just drag my mouse around. It's going to evenly distribute the cards in those for me. Okay, and then let's get up some research. So we really need some inserters. So I'm going to start with inserters. You can see because I've got a whole bunch of labs, this is going to go pretty quick. And as soon as I finish those inserters, boom, I'm going to make a whole bunch of them. I'm going to make like 150 inserters. Then I'm just going to daisy chain some of these together. And I'm going to have the robots deploy everything else for me. Okay, I'm also going to need to unlock the logistics technology, so we'll start that research. Okay, now we got logistics. I'm going to make some treadmill here, maybe 100 or so. These inserters aren't quite done, but that's fine, they'll catch up. Okay, and drop in some treadmill. There we go. Make a box. And let's do some outsertion there. Okay, and now I can finally just drop my big batch of cards into here. And now we're automatically deploying all of our science into our buildings. Hooray. Now let's keep some more technology. We've got the electric furnace and the mining drill, and then the ultradense furnace and electronics. Let's queue those up. You'll see the science is just going to race through here. But now that we've got electronic furnace, I'm going to do 5 of those. Reset the cube here. Actually, I'll put the cube in front of the furnaces. There we go. Cube back into more power. And as soon as this cube finishes, I'm going to make a whole bunch more plastic. And by plastic, I mean basic matter units. There we go. Okay, so spit up another 5,000 or so of this plastic. That should be lots. Let's queue up some more research, fluid handling, optics, circuits, fabricator, and n-dimensional widgets. Okay, while that's going, let's make some more of these guys. Again, you want to control click here, and then do that twice. The reason I'm still doing this by hand is we do not have access to inserters yet, which is gated behind combinatronics, specifically the filter, one of the logic gates there. So as soon as that research goes through, then I can automate this cube reinsertion and separation of these basic control cards. Okay, there you go. Now we've got access to these, but in order to build the cider combinators, we're going to need some rare metals. In order to get some rare metals, we're going to need to put them into an ultradense furnace. And in order to use the ultradense furnace, we need some stone. So let's stop what we're doing here. I'm going to make myself maybe 30 electric mining drills, which is probably way overkill, but whatever. We're going to need some more treadmill. We're going to need a couple of underground belts. We've got the miners, the inserters. That should be good. Okay, so let's go over here. Oh, wrong direction. Again, if you're running too fast, just throw your cube on the ground where you're going, and then you can run over there faster. Okay, so we're over here, and we're going to drop some miners. Let's do maybe 8. There we go. Built there. Cancel some of those miners. I really need these underground belts to get going. Alright, there we go. Drop these underground belts across the gap. There we go. And now let's load this all into some furnaces. And set the recipe. Okay, and there we go. There is now a box that's going to collect some stone brick for us. So we'll let that cook for a while. Throw the cube in to make some more power. Queue up another research here. Looks like we can do recovery bay, which is fantastic, and synthesizer fundamental comprehension cards. I don't really care about mining productivity yet, but let's do stone wall and some of the text plate technologies. Again, with this many labs set up, it's going to go pretty quickly. Okay, let's check how our stone's doing here. We're at 250. I think we need a little bit more than that. Oh no, there we go. There's an ultra dense furnace. 100 stone brick is required. Okay, so we've got ourselves a ultra dense furnace here. And these resources down below us here are the rare earth minerals. So let's drop our furnace down there. Copy our miner array. And drop that down to there. Hook up some power. And there we go. Okay, so the crafting recipe here is 500 raw earth metals, is 250 rare earth metals. So we're going to need to load a whole bunch of these really quickly. And as a result, I'm just going to basically cover almost all of two sides. I'm going to leave this one slot open up here. There we go. So that's 7 and 6 is 13 inserts. There we go. And again, we're also going to need the ultra dense utility cube for this. So I'll pull it out of our power factory and reset it. And now we can start cooking. As soon as we get to 500 here, it's going to set off. There we go. And for that, we get 250. So I'll reset the cube again. Put it back in as fuel again. Now it's not going to load until we take all of these materials out. So again, we want to be able to unload the factory really quickly as well. So I'll do as many outserters as I can on here as well. Oh. There we go. So that should give me a nice, almost full double-sided belt. And I'm just going to stand here for a bit, but I'll just control click that to get it going. Reset the cube again. And there we go. There's enough just rare earth metals to get us started. So now I can use the logic chips and filter inserters. We'll make maybe 50 or maybe 100 of those. We're going to need a lot of them. Okay, so another technology that we unlocked is the recovery bay, but recovery bays require n-dimensional widgets. Can't make those yet. I guess actually we can, so I'll drop down my fabricator, and we're going to set our fabricator to make, where are they? Sorry, not fabricator, that goes into a synthesizer. So I'll change the recipe over here. I'm going to make some n-dimensional widgets, which is going to require these rare earth metals, and also our power cube, which I need to reboot again. I'll cancel some of these so we can get going. Okay, so we drop our power cube in here, and we get a depleted cube and also 5 n-dimensional widgets. So cycle the cube again. There we go. There you go. So that's our first 10 n-dimensional widgets, which should now be enough to make us a recovery bay. So we're going to do that immediately. So the recovery bay is basically going to reboot the cube for us. So if I drop the cube in here now, along with some rare earth metals, you'll see that it's going to deplete the cube and create some dimensional widgets. Now I'm going to use the filter inserter, and I mean this isn't strictly required here because this will only accept depleted cubes, but I'm just going to be explicit about here for tutorial reasons. And then similarly, we're going to allow the refilled cube to come back. So now every time the cube is depleted, it will be recharged for us automatically, which is super handy. Similarly, we're going to do another filter outserter here, and we're going to explicitly allow the outsertion of n-dimensional widgets into a box. Hooray! So now we have basically automated creation of, not automated, but allowed us to get some n-dimensional widgets. Oops. Let's take all that stuff back. There we go. Yeah, and if I throw some more metal in here, it's going to make us some more metals. You can see actually we're like super running out of power again. And if that's the case, you're basically going to have to hope that this has enough power to complete, which I don't know if it does or not. Maybe it'll complete. Anyway, if it doesn't complete, you can just basically mine the building. It will give you the depleted cube back. Yep, so I'll just mine this building, the recovery bay back. And instead of having it reboot electrically, I'll just manually reboot it here. Drop it in for some more power generation. And now this is where we have to get into a loop that we need to start deciding how we want to handle things, because you don't want to be constantly having to self-manage, do I need power or do I need production or what do I need? So I'm just going to delete some of these buildings here and start a very basic progress loop here so that our cube is going to move around on its own and it's going to get us the resources that we want. So just quickly tear this up. Hang on 1 minute. It's very important in order to make progress in this game that you're able to place your buildings close together. So we want to have, for example, our synthesizer we'll do here. And then our ultradense furnace. Actually, let's move this over a little bit. Put the ultradense furnace here. And then we're going to put the synthesizer 4 units apart. And the reason for this is I'm going to start basically building a loop here on this treadmill. And the purpose of this loop is to basically allow equal opportunity to all of these buildings to grab the cube as they require. And then we're going to use some control logic to enable or disable the cube on different things. Just reset the power here. Okay. There we go. So if I've got the... we're basically going to follow up every building with a recovery bay. So the flow here is going to be that this building will be making rare earth metals when they're required. And this building is going to be making basic contemplation recipes when they're required. So the way that we're going to handle that is just basically to have a regular inserter, but we're going to hook that regular inserter up to some control logic. So put this over here. Oops, sorry. Need to move this up a little. There you go. So there's a recovery bay. And the recovery bay is basically going to automatically grab the cube whenever it needs to recharge it, which is basically whenever this machine here has finished using it. I'm also going to do a filter outsertion here, and this is only going to outsert the depleted cubes rather than the output of the material here. So I'm going to reroute this slightly. Put a splitter on here. So I still want to have as many inserts and outserts as possible on this building. So I'm going to try and cover the south side and a little bit of the west side with insertion. I'll stop it there. And then I'll cover the north and the rest of the east side with outsertion. Okay, so all of that will go to there, and then we're just going to basically do a buffer system. Nothing fancy, just chain a couple boxes together. And there we go. Okay, so Hook up some power. Okay. Now for our control logic here, I'm going to make some green wire and hook up our buffer system. Then I'm just going to basically carry that signal over to this inserter. What we want to say is this inserter will be enabled when our buffers are low. So let's say enabled condition when the rare earth materials is less than, let's say, I don't know, 500. Set that to whatever is appropriate for your buffer needs. And then we go over and grab the cube. Reset it and just drop it onto the belt. So right now our buffer is empty. You can see that we're receiving our circuit network 1 condition with 0 materials. And it's slowly starting to fill up. This belt here is going to start backing up. And there you go. So now you can see our buffer has got about 70, 80 material in it. And that's very shortly going to fill up. Lost the cube here somewhere. Oh, it got sucked into this other building. One moment. I'm just going to remove that inserter because I haven't set up that logic yet. Okay, so cube goes past. We've still got less than 1,000 in here. So this inserter accepts it and enables this machine. It's going to produce some more materials. This goes around again. We've still got less than 1,000. It's going to accept it. And very shortly, our buffer here is going to pass 1,000. Maybe not very shortly. Then 500, sorry. There we go, there's 500. And as soon as that happens, you can see this little red light on this inserter is going to turn off. So this machine will stop accepting the cube. And now the cube's just basically going to do laps around and never going to finish. Okay, so that machine is set up, and we've got now basically a supply of metal. Whenever our buffer is running low, this will turn on and we'll create some more metal. Let's do another thing over here, and we're going to do the same logic, but now this recipe only has outputs, so we don't have to worry about inputs. So I'm just going to pull some outputs off of this building. There, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make some quick buffers. Make some more fast inserters. And some power. Hook up the buffer chest. There we go. And then we're going to use another inserter here. Hook up the control logic to it. And we want to say that this is going to be enabled when, where are the cards here? Basic contemplation cards are less than, let's say, I don't know, 50. We don't need too many of those as long as they're being produced. There we go. There's our output. And now we can direct this output straight over to our labs. And this is going to basically now have fully automated science tier 1 production for us. There we go. We're running out of power probably. If you're losing the cube, you can basically just click on this and it'll show you where it is. Oh, the cube. So what happened there is I have an outserter somewhere. Yep. So all of these outserters here should have been filter inserters, and they incorrectly grabbed the cube rather than the output metals. So I'm just going to put some filter on here. Only allow the metals, and copy paste that setting to all of these. Okay, so grab the cube over here. I'm going to reset it again. Hopefully this will be the last time I reset it for power. And we'll automate some power resetting over here. Okay, so we've got our water coming in here to be boiled and then goes through all of this, but this is kind of messy and it's not, more importantly, it's far away from our control loop of where our cube is doing its operation. So I'm going to actually tear all of this down again. You'll notice this is a recurring theme in this mod. You need to constantly tear down, rebuild your stuff, make it more optimized, streamline. We're going for quick and efficient turnaround of the cube rather than scale or other things. So we're going to take some of these underground pipes, bring our water over here. There we go. There we go. So where did the boiler end? The boiler is here. So what we're going to do is whenever the power is low, meaning we're running low on steam, then we want to enable the sensorter that is going to grab the cube for us and make more steam. Then we're going to again push it back through a recovery bay and then return it to the belt. But the order that I'm doing this in makes it so that power is sort of our highest priority, really. If power stops, all of our inserters stops and bad things happen. So what I want to do here is essentially allow the close the loop here where the cube can just go around and refill power and refill power and refill power until our steam buffers are satisfactory. And then once that condition is met, then the cube can go about doing its business and keep making other things. But for now, we want to really make sure that our power is nice and topped up. So in order to do that, I'm going to again just make a little buffer area here. Maybe 6 of these, I guess. That seems like enough. And then I will hook up the control logic here. You can see we just ran out of power. That's fine. There you go. So we're gonna basically measure this in this container. I'm going to assume that it's going to basically average out against all of them. And what we want to do is basically measure if there's, let's say, 10,000 steam in here, then we don't grab the cube. If there's less than 10,000 steam, then we grab the cube. We go over to here. So we're enabled when steam is less than 10,000. There we go. And I'll just drop the... I'm going to reboot the cube first. There we go. And I'll drop the cube in there. Oh, and I should probably hook up the pipe. So what's happening now is cube is making steam. Steam's getting pushed into the ducts. And every time the every time the cube is done, or depleted rather, I don't have any. Oh, gotta hook up the steam to my turbines. Make some more pipe here quick. Whatever, that looks ugly, but it works. So whenever the cube is done, it gets automatically recharged and then goes up into the belt upstream of the power. So it's able to just basically do this short little loop until we've got more than 10,000 steam, and then regular production can continue. So you can see here we're up to 8,000, 9,000, there's 10,000. You can see this inserter shuts off and now we've got enough steam that we can resume regular production. Cube here finishes burning the fuel, making more steam. Cube gets rebooted, back onto the conveyor belt, and now it's up to this machine to determine it's not going to activate because our metal buffers are full. So instead, it allows this one to go. I need to set up a output on this. I'm actually just going to move this inserter down 2 tiles here. Rehook up its logic. And then I'm going to put a filter outserter right up at the top here, which is going to whitelist our charged cube. So again, we've got another little loop here that, because these are so cheap to make, and it's a little bit more efficient if we just allow it to repeatedly do this loop here until some condition is met. And that condition here is going to be that we've got enabled when we have less than 50 of those cards in there. So you can see it's waiting for space and destination. It's because we haven't outserted these yet. So I'll put some more filter outserters. There we go. And we want to allow it to outsert the technology cards, tier 1. There you go. So now what's going to happen is we're just in this kind of closed loop here for a minute, where we are pushing out these cards as fast as we can. This will back up pretty shortly here. In fact, you can see we're already starting to back up on the belt. So we should hit that threshold of 50 items in production, or rather in the buffers, fairly soon. Even while we're doing the research. Okay, so we've completed those research items. These will back up pretty shortly here. Next thing we're going to be looking towards making here is going to be these electronic circuits. So we're going to need to automate creation of basic matter unit, and then copper wire, which is just made from more basic matter unit. So in order to do that, we're going to need to build another synthesizer. And in order to accompany that, we're going to need another recovery bay, which is going to need a couple more n-dimensional widgets. So I will throw this down quickly to make me some more widgets. Grab the cube off the belts, drop it in here, and we need some metal. Okay, I just needed to quickly grab some stuff there, so we got that. And now with our n-dimensional and some more stone brick, which is up here, I can make another recovery bay. Okay, so I'm going to make another synthesizer here. I'm going to repeat the same logic. I'm going to make a these guys here. filter inserter because we only want to pull out the basic matter unit. We don't want to pull out the storage cube out this direction. And again, filter outserter this way. I'm going to do that same sort of closed loop system where it's able to just cycle back and forth here again because it's a pretty basic materials. That will enable that. We're going to allow the outsertion of the cube back onto the tray. And I need to actually also do that. So what's going to happen is, actually that's not the case. So this recipe doesn't actually deplete the cube, so we don't need to recharge it if it's been through the cube. If it's been through the building. There we go. Let's do some treadmill out. And let's tag up some logic. So again, we want to measure the contents of our buffer, and we want to control the operation of this when plastic is less than, let's say, 300. There we go, and I drop the cube in. So now what's going to happen is it's going to loop around, and it's going to work in trying to fill up this buffer until there is 300, I think it just missed it there. Oh, waiting for space and destination. So that's another reason why I have it kind of laid out like this is we have to make sure that we're getting the materials out of this machine fast enough. The cube will not be accepted as input until there's less than 100 items in the output. So we have to just pull them out nice and quick. This time you'll see it'll be accepted. There we go, it's going to grab the cube here. Output the cube, grab the cube again. Output the cube, but this time it's going to skip it. Oh, no, it grabbed it 3 times. Because the output materials was still basically full. On the other hand, now our input materials is more than 300, so this machine is produced until its buffer is completed. Excellent. Okay, so we've got chips tier 1. Now let's add some chips tier 2. We're going to make a couple of fabricators. And then we're going to pull this output off of this buffer line up over here. Okay, and we're also going to need these metal. Okay, so in order to make some green chips here, you can see we're going to need basic matter units, rare earth materials, and conductive wire, which is just more basic matter units. So I'm going to quickly throw in 2 of these guys and tell them to make conductive wire. There we go. Oh, sorry, I screwed that up. We need the metal to make wire, not the basic matter unit. There we go. Okay, and then in order to make the green chips, we basically need these 3 components. So we've got here our I'm just going to converge those onto the single belt there. And then our copper wire over here. And this recipe is basically going to give us our science materials. Sorry, not science, electronic circuits. There we go. And let's get some long-handed outserters. There we go. And there you go. So that's green chips. In order to finish the other half of science, we're going to need to add to those green chips some n-dimensional widgets. And n-dimensional widgets are made in a big factory, and they're made of metal. So again, let's expand our logic belt here once more. Oh, you know what? I need n-dimensional widgets to make n-dimensional widgets. So I'm just going to quickly steal this building over here. There's a cube. Drop the cube in, drop some metal. I need to make, I think, 20 or something. Yep, 20. So I need to activate it one more time. There we go. Now I can put this building back into place. And now I've got another one of them here that can make us the n-dimensional widgets directly. Let's go here. So I'm just basically using this one as a secondary option, that if this machine outputs a depleted cube, when it passes here it will be recharged before it goes into the next building. Okay, so let's set this up to make some n-dimensional things. We're going to need a cube as input. We're going to need some metal as input. Okay, there we go. Now we need a filtered outserter that only accepts the depleted cube, and we need some more filter outserter that only accepts n-dimensional widgets. Now again, we only want this to operate when we've got widgets. We only need a few of these, so instead of making a big system of chests, I'm just going to mark a couple pieces of belt like this. Carry that signal over here. This is going to be enabled when n-dimensional widgets is less than 5. So basically if there's not 5 on this belt, we're going to change it from, instead of enable disable, to just read belt contents. There you go. Now this section of 5 belts basically acts as a buffer. If there's if the area is full of n-dimensional widgets, we're not going to try to make more of them. There we go. So I'm going to take this output here. Let's drop the cube back into our cycle here. Turn the system back on. Okay, so now we've got n-dimensional widgets and we've got green circuits. There's our first widgets coming off the line there. And let's turn those into some science. Make a couple of fabricators here. Those fabricators are going to be making fundamental comprehension cards, which is basically tier 2 science. Those are the 2 components with 1 output. There you go. Now you can see we're producing green science up here. Let's duplicate that a couple of times just to widen some production capacity. And I need one more fabricator and its power poles. And there we go. So that's going to basically allow us to have now fully automated research of green and gray science. And yeah, I'm going to end the tutorial here. I hope that that's gives you some insight on how to get going, how to get this automated loop going where it's going to take your inputs and activate the processes that are required without basically backing up and jamming. The worst thing you want to do in this mod is basically have the cube go into a building and get stuck on production reasons and not be able to get out, which is going to basically cause your whole base to grind to a halt until you figure out why it's doing it. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed watching, and bye.